Hey, Charlie.
Hey,
Here you are.
hey, here I am.
You're booking those circus the circus rolls. You're booking the carnival, the carny rolls with that beard and that shirt.
Yeah, we're moving a lot of candy corn, and it's pretty sweet. We can use the money.
Charlie promised me he was going to shave, and now that he has it on his face, I don't know what he shaved. So.
I thought you meant my testicular area.
I knew it.
They're buff to a luster.
Well, thanks for coming on, guys. I don't know if Richard's recording. Are you recording, Richard?
Yes.
Good. That's the way we like
master.
to do it. Charlie's probably watched a few of these, so he knows it's a pretty informal shotgun kind of just, talking shit. And usually I have on comedians. The people watching this will know I usually have on comedians. But today we have on a couple people who are sort of on the periphery of what my normal guests do, which is Charley Rossman, my first guest, who is my pal, who I've worked together with and is a comic actor. He is a great comic actor and character actor. He's been in about 100 movies. A year doesn't go by that this guy isn't in about 6 or 7 fucking things. He's been in Veronica Mars and Curb Your Enthusiasm and Superbad, among them. So please welcome my friend Charley Rossman. Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you, sir.
For showing up.
Thank you, sir.
All right. And now this other guy who I don't know, but
I'm your new friend. I'm your new friend.
My new friend who we're going to get to know, you're going to get to know, and I'm going to get to know today. This guy is really fucking interesting. I spent a lot of time on Amazon watching what I would describe as surreal comedy. He's a surreal comedy animator. He has produced a series called Master Funk Theater and
Master Freak.
Revengance, the movie. Revengance, right?
That's right.
And so everybody give a big round of applause out there silently for my new friend, Jim Lujan.
Lujan.
That's just how this goes. That's
We're writing down all the corrections right now. We're going to send them to you right now.
Jim, like first I want to ask you a few questions before we go get into Charlie and I's little history. But dude, are you like your stuff is pretty fucking bizarre, man.
Yes, I know. I don't know where it comes from. Hey, we can cuss on this show, right?
Yes, please do.
Hey, Charlie,
it's so funny because
you, Charlie.
watching your work, one would never think that this is the guy I would be talking to.
No, I think the same thing. I think it's like an out of body experience. I guess that's where I channel it all. That and my serial killing. Those two things.
Oh, okay. You know, you could have been a great prolific serial killer had you not found a creative outlet.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, I should just stay in my lane.
Yeah, I'm glad you had that art therapy because I could see like are you like a guy like Vince Gilligan who just seems like he's normal, but just has this twisted creativity that just pops out? Is that
yeah? Vince Gilligan or the Skipper, either one. But yes, that's exactly right.
What your work is like? I was like, okay, I got to look at this guy's work. I'm really lazy. You know, Charlie sent it, and I was like, and I got into it, and I just couldn't stop watching.
Thank you. I can't. That's good because I can't stop making them, so that works out.
Well, dude, they're like animated Quentin Tarantino films. That's what it felt like I was watching.
Well, thank you.
And I am not an animation guy. I don't like comedians love The Simpsons and they love Family Guy. I'm not that I dislike it. It's just not my it's not.
Yeah, you know what, Steve? It's okay because honestly, no joke, and I'm not an animation guy either. And I know that sounds funny coming from an animator, but I like live action stuff way more than I do most animation. So I'm right there with you.
Tell me more about that because I need someone to relate to on that. Because this is perfect.
There was a time when I wanted to be a live action filmmaker, and I realized, because I mean, you've seen the amount of work that I do. I'm very prolific, and I realized that in order to make live action films, you actually had to have live action actors. And and I won't say all, but most actors I know are just really difficult, and they drink and they have beer, and they're just really awful, terrible people. But not all actors, just Charley. But I really I really did find that it was hard to get people, live action people, to show up, and and then plus I've always my whole life had a obsession with making cartoons and art and music. So this was like the perfect outlet. This was something I could conquer all of that and get all that out of my system, and except I realized I'm not really a Disney animator, so I just do what I feel, And
yeah, you're more like somewhere between R. Crumb and Mike Judge.
I thought you were going to say R. Crumb and R. Kelly, because I was going to agree with you. So.
See, that's where your mind takes it, because you're so twisted. You're more twisted than any of these actors or comedians.
Yeah,
really.
but like you said, I like to. I don't wear it on my sleeve. So I'm not even wearing sleeves, so I don't wear it on my sleeves. I just it was this or serial killing. So thank you.
I'm so glad, and it really is. Creativity really is our therapy for psychopaths and perverts. It really is. If you want to break it down and boil it down, they want to cancel all the psychopaths and the perverts, but this is our place.
That's
like
good,
we have to have.
Today you have both on your show, so that's good.
Yes, exactly.
Hey.
We'll get to you, Charley. Wait, we'll get to you. We have an hour. We might go over that. Sometimes two guests, it goes long. But dude, I really admire your animation. I really dig it. I was a little bit like, why does this guy want to come on my podcast? He's got to have better things to do. I mean, is he like, you can create animation in a fucking in a vacuum, dude. You could be working at home this whole pandemic.
Yeah, you're very self-contained, and I think that's why a lot of people that do animation, not all of them, but a lot of them are kind of introverted. And I don't know. I'm not the biggest extrovert, but I'm definitely not an introvert. So I don't know. I like people. I do. So although I do murder them, but I do like them. So
was Dexter a big show for you?
That was a little too close to the bone, I think.
Let's segue off that to get into Charley here.
Speaking of murderers, let's go to Charley.
The great, hilarious Charley Rossman, buddy. Thank you for coming and joining me.
Yeah, I've been hoping to do this for a while, man. I've enjoyed some of the ones I've seen, and it's fun.
Dude, you're such a. I appreciate you being a fan. We have a small fan base of the podcast, but really the most interesting, like 10 or 15 people. I won't name the names, but in addition to yourself, like, you were a talented motherfucker. We worked on a project called the Fairfax File, which was meant to be. Do you know the backstory of that whole thing?
I don't know a lot about it. I know you did a good job on it.
Thank you. Well, you did a good job on it. You ended up being the featured guy in it.
Thanks.
Charley played. You can look this up on. It's on YouTube. Charley plays Lieutenant Trask, which is basically the hard-boiled cop who has had it and just probably doesn't want to be a cop anymore. Fairly similar to what we have in the United States right now. And he's interrogating me, and it's based off of a feature film, which we made this as a trailer to try to get financing. And like Jim, finding out that it's a lot more trouble to make stuff with people. We never got the financing for that. But you've been in, like, dude, I was looking at your IMDb. I know you've been in a lot of stuff, but I didn't realize the amount of work you've done, brother. Tell me about your acting career.
I'm like Jim, I do it because it's, I have to, like, as you know, I'm also an attorney. I feed my kids through my law office, and I take care of my personal problems through the acting stuff. And I've had I keep busy at it. They're constantly calling. I just got hired this morning, actually, for a Hulu show, a nice guest star on a Hulu show. So things come up. I'm not I'm not playing the game. I'm just showing up and doing the best I can, and I have a good time doing it. People hire me.
How do you procure these gigs? I mean, I know you're talented and you do your thing. Do people see you in other stuff and then they just, word gets through the grapevine and people go, hey, we want that guy? Or do you have an agent who does all the lifting for you?
I have a couple agents, and I have Aqua Talent, and I also have Abrams Artists that represent me, and which is now A3. Also have a manager, Scott Vandiver at Spotlight. He hustles a lot for me, and so that and a lot of stuff like you were saying. People that have seen me in other stuff and know the kind of stuff I do. And if anyone's looking for a carnival barker, like you were saying earlier, I'm willing to pitch it. Cotton candy, whatever you need.
Jim, you're going to have to draw him. The only thing I didn't see in your animation was Charlie, this image of Charlie. So
you know what? There's a character named Jerry the Poolman in a film that the first voice that Charlie did for me in Infinity Pool. And before I ever met Charlie, I had designed this character, and it kind of looked like him a little. It looks like Charlie mixed with Jim Croce.
Okay, so like a more ethnic Charley Rossman.
Yeah, a little bit. He had the mustache, but
right, a little butcher mustache.
Yeah.
Infinity Pool was the only one I couldn't find. When I searched Infinity Pools, the actual pool cleaning, pool installing service was all that came up. So you're going to
give it a try with my name. Put Infinity Pool Jim Lujan, that might show up.
Okay.
If not, I'll send you a link because it's actually on YouTube as well.
Well, send me a link after we're all done. But I'm as a comic who I've never had an agent or manager, Charlie, ever.
Really?
No. When I first came to town, I did have a agent, but all my work has come through. And then again, I haven't done acting work like you have, but all the work that I've gotten as a writer, as a stand-up, and filmmaker or whatever, director, have all been through people telling other people, this guy, hey, this guy's funny, and a lot of times I wasn't qualified. I ended up directing a guy's podcast who I wasn't qualified. I had never done that, but I just pretended like, I'm not going to turn down money, so yeah. That's why it's interesting to ask you about how and I see how really good you are at this, dude. I mean, yes, you're a good actor, but we know that's not really the criteria in show business. You're good. The criteria is, who likes you, right?
Well, that's the unspoken truth. But and if you think of it initially, it's like you kind of I don't want to be a suck up or a pussy. I don't want to go kissing people's ass and whatever. But on the other hand, once you're good to people, like if you do something and you show up on time and you do it the best you can, and then you help them promote it or help them put the shit away when it's over, people remember that. And there's like 10 or 12 people that I'm good friends with now, not through sucking up to them, but just through doing good work for them and being reliable. And they remember you, and they call you back. And now I'm always busy. And I don't have a heavy conscience, and I don't feel like I've compromised myself in any way. I like to be good to people, and lately people have been good to me too. So.
Charlie didn't even mention that he's friends with QAnon. That's how he gets his job.
It's actually Scientology.
Yeah, that would be better.
I want you to share later.
Jim, you see why Jim's. I see into your mind why you create the things you create, because you go for the most extreme fucking, like the target would have been a Scientology, but he went to QAnon. I like this. I see it.
QAnon has a better benefit plan than Scientology. So.
Not if you look at those people who stormed the Capitol.
Yeah.
They look like they need better benefit plan. SAG has the good benefit plan, right?
You know why QAnon works? Because Q is the most mysterious letter.
No, X is the most mysterious letter.
No, Q.
No, X. I'm
sorry.
Silent. I'm sorry.
What other than saying the letter, what noise or sound does it make? It's hiding out.
You can't spell xylophone without X.
Or Q.
I never told Charlie this, though. Charlie doesn't know this, but I'm amazed that Charlie's in my films. I feel like I got the best looking girl on the block, and she just doesn't know it. Like everyone else is afraid to ask her out. And Charlie, you're that chick.
Speaking of friends that Charlie's made, how did you guys meet? Why don't we unpack that whole thing?
We
When
met
did you
through
meet?
a mutual friend, our friend Mark and Karen. And then, can I tell the story, the wonderful, embarrassing story when
It'll be like Rashomon. You tell it, and then Charlie will tell his side.
Charlie,
I'll fix it.
After I tell the story, tell me if I can tell it or not.
Keep talking. I'm just getting my water. Keep talking.
Okay. So one day we were at our mutual friend's house, and then she brought out this DVD and said, "Hey, I'm going to play Charlie's new movie." And I just internally cringed. I was like, "Oh no," because Charlie's sitting right there, and I'm like, "What? What if it's terrible?" And and he's sitting, and I'm out to like, and plus, what if we're bored? And they put it on, and I swear to you, at 5 minutes in, I was like, "This guy's like De Niro level acting. This guy is no joke. Like this guy is like super good, and this movie's really good." I was like shocked. I was impressed, and I was like, "This guy, you could put him on the screen with anybody. This guy, and not only does he hold his own, but he makes the project better." I mean, it was a scenario set up for failure, and he knocked it out of the park. I was like, I'm impressed. So, and then beyond that, Charlie, you were kind of quiet that first night too. You weren't like normal Charlie. And then talking to him for a few minutes of it, and then the second time I met him, the real Charlie came out, the werewolf. He was like animated and then I realized, okay, this is my people right here. And then we found out also we're from the same city and same high school and everything like.
Oh, really?
Yeah, our roots are.
How did that's come on, that's some mystical, bizarre shit.
Yeah.
Where are you guys from? What high school did you go to?
Edgewood High School, West Covina, California. Student body president, class of 75.
The WC, as featured on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
Now, are you the same graduation year?
No, Jim is much older than I am.
I'm about 40 years older than Charlie.
Jim, you have good monkey hormones, brother.
Thank you. It's the QAnon blood, I'm telling you.
That's our next film, actually, Monkey Hormone.
Yeah.
You better be the featured animated character in that, Charlie.
Yeah. I got the fur for it, I'll tell you.
Charlie doesn't know it, but it's a snuff film.
How long ago? How long ago was that you guys met?
It's been, what, it's 5 years?
5? Yeah, about 5.
Oh,
I mean, 3
okay.
and 5
4.
years.
That's funny that you guys were from the same place. I have had that also happen. I had that happen with David Mamet.
Oh, wow.
And I was born in the same neighborhood in Chicago that David Mamet went to, and he went to school with my mom.
Oh, really?
And he's in her yearbook.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's weird.
That's crazy. Wow.
Very, very surreal.
I learned not that long ago that Joan Jett lived in West Covina for a while.
You know what? West Covina, though, is really not that outside of LA. It's, what is it?
No.
40 minutes out, 30 minutes
30.
outside.
30 minutes out of LA, but with traffic.
If you drew concentric circles around Hollywood, it would be comparable to like Woodland Hills, but just the other direction.
Okay, so before I get into it, because I have a question that's critical to me for you guys, but this is like, being from fucking Illinois or Nebraska and ending up in Hollywood that's a big fucking thing. But you guys are like Van Halen. I mean, they were from Pasadena, right? You guys are, right? So what is it like being on just the outskirts? You're on the periphery of this sort of weird land, and then you're gonna come into it and be part of it. Tell me a little about that. You first, Jim.
First of all, people are constantly comparing us to Van Halen. So,
You too, right? You too,
Yeah.
specifically.
Well, sometimes you too, but mostly Van Halen. Mostly Van Halen. But
He was prepared for this comedy podcast, people.
I don't know. I've always had this weird thing. I don't know if you have the same thing, Charlie, where you don't feel like West Covina counts. Like it's just like, oh, I'm from West Covina, but nobody knows where that is or what it is. And you're always trying to get out. But then this is going to sound like an after school special, but I really learned that it's where your heart is where the home, I really learned that. I mean, and a big part of it's Charlie being from West Covina. I realized you could be a creative person from any, it doesn't matter where you're from or where you're based. It just matters what you do. But I don't know. I've never had my image of West Covina growing up was always for not even a step stepkid. It was more like a stepkid's, friend from class. It was like West Covina didn't count growing up. I never knew anybody famous from West Covina. I never knew anything that made it special. But I'm glad I'm from West Covina, and it really is cool that Charlie's from there too. I mean, it gives me a comrade. But how do you feel?
No, yeah. So what was tell me your little impression there, Charlie?
I think it's all just suburbs in search of an identity, And it doesn't really matter if you're from Downey or West Covina or Woodland Hills or Sherman Oaks. I mean, there's a little more pressure, I think, if you're in Sherman Oaks or something to kind of have a status. Whereas where I'm from, my side of town or our side of town, it doesn't good, there's no real pressure,
We have a Porto's in West Covina now, so that's saying something.
Is that a steak place?
Porto's is the Cuban, like a bakery, and they make it's good stuff. Try it out.
I think the West Covina, by the way, I've done stand-up in Downey. I love going outside to those places because as a live entertainer, you have real audience. You have real people who do jobs and have lives. And I don't want to have that life. But I want to entertain people who are not entertainers. And when you're in LA live, you're only entertaining people who are entertainers or who think they are. And so it's really, really miserable. It's a miserable existence to try to be only doing a comedy, specifically stand-up, in LA. And so that's my sort of impression of it. But I am from Chicago, and then I graduated high school in Florida, and I go back there and I feel the same way you do, Jim. I'm like, yeah, I hated this place when I lived here. I hated this place. And now I come back, and as long as I'm performing and working, I'm happy, But if I had to live there, I'd probably take my own life.
Or others. Don't rule that out.
Always keep that in your back pocket.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
There's a place on the outskirts of LA too called Claremont, and on the corner of Indian Hill and Foothill, there's a place called the Old Schoolhouse, and it has like a theater in there, like the Candlelight Pavilion, which does a lot of musical comedies. And downstairs, it used to have a place called the Laugh Stop, which is like a comedy nightclub.
Okay, what years are we talking about, Charlie?
This would have been like in the 80s and 90s.
Okay, so this is at the peak of the American comedy boom.
And I was the host at the Laugh Stop, the MC and the host for a couple years, and would sell tickets, and I was the bouncer, and I would do the introductions and would work in material, a few minutes between each, or 30 seconds between each set or whatever. And then I also performed with my ex-wife in a lot of musical comedies at this Candlelight Pavilion. And also I had my law office in there. So it was this little self-contained community for a while. And, it was on the outskirts, like you say, of town. So but we were bringing in all kinds of major acts, Robin Williams and Denny Johnston, and all kinds of people that I had a lot of respect for. And Denny Johnston was Denny Johnston, Steve?
I don't. No. Sorry, I don't.
He was an incredible stand-up in the 80s and 90s, and one of the funniest people alive. And anyway, he gave me a lot of tips. I used to do a stand-up backflip in my act, where I'd do a backflip, and I would then do some shtick off of that, physical comedy shtick. And Denny Johnston used to give me all kinds of suggestions and little places I could go with it, and he didn't have to do that, and being as good as he was. But yeah, you should look him up. I'm sure that some of the older people that in the business will remember him very specifically.
Okay, first of all, are you going to end our show with a backflip?
No, I might tear my hymen. I'm saving it for my second marriage.
Okay, so I wrote down Denny Johnson. I will go look him up. So you were a stage performer before you were in any, which is probably common.
Yeah, I studied at Lambda, London Academy of Music and Dramatic Arts, did all that stuff, this Shakespeare and the classical training and stuff. And, it hasn't served me that well, but I mean, I'm glad I did it. You never know what's in your bag of tricks. I worked my way up to a certain level in the groundlings, and that kind of got a little hierarchical for me. So I got out of that. But I had different types of training.
Okay, so yeah, that you didn't just come straight from West Covina. You had a whole cycle of other shit you did, and when
I circumnavigated my way into town.
What it kind of is that way for all of us. I mean, when you're a kid, you have no fucking idea what you don't know anybody or anything.
No,
So you're just gonna go where the wind takes you.
Yeah,
where the opportunities
exactly.
the doors open.
Yeah,
so, but you went
and
to
sometimes that's the thing. Sometimes you get into doors too early before you're ready, or while you're still swallowing your gum or shitting your pants, and then people rule you out for 3 or 4 years until they forget about you. Then you get another shot. But so sometimes, a sequential route, to the extent that you can conceive one, is a better attack or a better approach at it. But who knows? I got into a lot of doors early just because of the nature of my personality, and so I slowed some of my progress down that way. But overall, I wouldn't do much of it different.
And Jim, you're basically, I mean, you're a pretty famous guy, dude. I'm not starstruck or awestruck a lot, but I'm like, this guy, I want to be in this guy's stuff. This is fucking awesome. What
the show Bless the Hearts on Fox? It's an animated show on Fox.
I don't know it.
He designed some of some of the characters in that.
Right, and you write the stories for some of these things. I mean, you're doing voices on some of these things, right, Jim?
On my stuff, yeah. Not Bless the Hearts. I just helped out with some of the character design that. And I'm thinking back a few seconds though, still, when Charlie said, "Swallow your gum and shit your pants."
Can you do both of those at the same time, Jim?
I want to use that one. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I was thinking about it a little bit earlier today. Well, not today, but and it's like I'm in the stage where I'm creating a lot lately. I mean, I've always created a lot, but I'm on like on a high for creating. But the second part, the follow-up, is the part where I need to focus a little bit more, because I'm creating all this stuff, but I'm not really like marketing it or anything. I'm just like, one after another. That's always been I've never had an agent either.
Yeah. How does it work with that in the animation business? Is it just through the networks of people you work with already? Because you have collaborators, you have people I see that you collaborate with.
I'm working with a company, this guy Danny, at a company called Continuum, and they're the ones that originally got Master Freak Theater, which is it's on Amazon right now, and it's a series. It's 10 episodes, and it's an anthology series, and within each episode there's like 3 or 4 cartoon shorts, and that was the first thing I got on Amazon, and local TV. That's actually kind of cool. I've been on UHF, so I am pretty famous.
And
let me throw this in here. There's an Academy Award nominee. Is he an Academy Award winner or Academy Award nominee? Bill Plimpton.
Bill Plimpton, yeah.
Bill Plimpton. He's one of the best animators and cartoonists in the entire world, and he likes to collaborate with Jim. They collaborated on that show Revengance, and Bill Plimpton is the creme de la creme, and Jim and he conceived and did a great feature-length film together, and that's not small potatoes.
That's definitely a highlight, and I think I'm the only animator he's collaborated with like that in that format. He's like a really well-known legend and a really nice guy, and so like I'm really prolific, and I have a great body of work, but man, it's like I could definitely use that 3-day business course for getting stuff out there, because my mind is focused on creating all the time.
Well, other animators, other guys who've done animation and become big like this have crossed over into doing live action stuff. I mean, Mike Judge is a great example of that, and his live action stuff is great. I mean, Idiocracy is great. And, I do want to say before I forget, what Master Freak Theater sort of reminded me, how I would describe it is as a X-rated Aqua Teen Hunger Force. I used to get stoned a lot and watch Aqua Teen Hunger Force. That was one of my favorite surreal kind of, and yours reminded me of that.
I think it's PG-13, but you know what? Somebody told me one time, they said, your stuff is like PG-13. It's never that bad, but it looks dirty. It just looks like
there's a lot of swearing on Amazon. It's totally uncensored, I think.
Yeah. But that Master Freak Theater was actually, it was on UHF in the LA area and some other areas. And,
wow, cool.
Yeah,
That's
so
really
it was
cool.
never R-rated or anything. Revengance
Okay.
has some cussing in it, but anything Charley is in as well is automatically flagged. So not safe.
That's why he keeps changing his appearances, so no one the authorities won't get him.
I'm under the radar.
Oh, this is fun. This is great. We get to team up on Charley.
Poor Charley.
Under the radar.
This is what you asked for this, Charley. You wanted to come on here. This was you lobbied for this.
I just want to be loved. Is that so wrong?
Oh, how could anybody not love you, dude?
I just want to be loved.
You killed it on our thing. And by the way, I wasn't working with those people I was working with. The director was a professional, but the producer, she didn't know what she was doing.
Yeah, there was a little bit of scramble there, I thought.
Yeah, I remember that, right? We had a producer. Go ahead.
Who was that one? The other actor in that, the other detective or whatever, with the big lantern jaw guy.
Yes, that was Christopher Young. And we created that because we were trying to spoof Sin City, right?
Yeah.
But we had these terrible makeup effects. I mean, the budget was whatever it was, you know.
Yeah.
And I wrote for Cat Williams. So what you were seeing was me using my influence from my Cat Williams, my little bit of Cat Williams buzz from that period when he was big before he started, you know, before things started going south, when everybody thought he was going to be the next Eddie Murphy. And I was using that to get that made. That was how that got made.
Right.
Those people put in their resources. I didn't put in any resources into that. But
that's awesome, by the way, Steve. I didn't know that you wrote for Cat Williams. That's really cool.
I wrote for Cat Williams, and you know, Jim, I should have sent you my comedy so you could see about me. Usually, I've had on guests and they don't know my comedy, and then it's embarrassing. But this is not so much because I just dropped the ball on this one. But I'll send it to you so you can see. I wrote for Cat Williams, and I came through the black comedy clubs out here in South Central and Watts and Gardena and Compton, and so that was how I ended up there. We had all the same friends. Going back to your friends, you know, you get things through your friends. Well, we had all the same friends, and eventually I just met him, and he wanted to help. He wanted to help me, and it was really, there's a whole podcast with Corey Mosley. If you want to really have the time you want to watch, you can hear the whole story. But yeah, I ended up writing for him. And Charley, we were doing that in 2009, and I was writing for him in 2007, 8, and 9. So I was trying to parlay the little influence I got with the people I knew who had resources. And I had gotten a hold of that script, which I thought was really funny. And I own the script now. I have the rights to the script. So I have since learned a little business, like the business course that Jim's talking about.
Yeah.
I finally took, and I didn't own the script. I was doing all this and I didn't own the rights to the project. You know, it's just stupid. But anyway, I don't want to drone on.
That was a very stylized piece. It was what was that? What do you call it? Film noir, or what would you call that style?
Film noir, and Jim, we used all green screen, so we had an animator digitally create everything.
Oh wow!
So you know, I could send it to you, but
yeah.
It's good. It's good.
It's really good. You did a great job on that.
Well, you're the featured guy.
What's the title of it?
It's called The Fairfax File. It's a Mel Brooks style version of film noir.
I like that. Yeah.
So
yeah, Jim would like that.
Yeah, Jim will like. I'll send you all this, Jim, afterward. You can get to know me.
Very good. I will.
So, how influenced were you as a kid, Jim, by Dr. Demento? I have to ask you this.
Oh, I love Dr. Demento. Are you kidding me? Fish heads, dead puppies, Weird Al. Oh my God, I love. That's funny that you mentioned that. I was a huge Dr. Demento fan. Yeah, and
do you consciously connect that with your work now, or?
Yeah, I mean, in a weird way, that and Mad Magazine are just in my veins. I lived off of those. That's funny that's the first time anybody's ever asked me about Dr. Demento. I used to record it on cassette, It was on like Sunday nights or something like that.
It was on public TV in LA, right? Wasn't it?
Well, I was on the radio. I used to record it off of, I think, a KMET or something like that.
KMET.
Yeah, it was on KMET. And I remember Weird Al when he first came out, when he did Another One Rides the Bus. He recorded that in a bathroom I was a big fan. All of that stuff. Mad Magazine was huge for me.
He's from this side of town, actually, Linwood.
Oh yeah.
Weird Al's from Linwood.
Weird Al's from Linwood.
He is.
Yeah.
Shit, he was the only white guy living in Linwood in the 60s.
Yeah.
Speaking of white guys, Charlie, when you grew up in West Covina, it was very Brady Bunch white, right? When you were growing up.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
And then guess who showed up?
Gil Brown, stick around.
Yeah, because when I grew up in West Covina, it was very mixed. There was not enough white kids to run things. There were not enough brown kids or black kids or Asian to run. So everybody kind of hung out with everybody. And there was such a good vibe because we were all brutal to each other and our senses of humor, but nobody got offended. And if you took the things that we said to each other as friends, joking around, it would be a hate crime now. I'm telling you, it was. So like that's one of the things I was thinking when we were talking about earlier. I'm very glad and very grateful that I got to grow up in a mixed environment because there's a lot of different influences.
You didn't know how good you had it, Jim.
Well, yeah, I didn't until you meet people that you mentioned certain, like I've got friends from Texas. And they would be like, I would just mention something, and to them that was the most ethnic thing they've ever heard of. And I'm like, everybody doesn't eat sopes,
Well, you could also be growing up as a millennial in a really mixed, diverse community now. And if anybody says anything, there's nothing aggressive. Everything's microaggressive. So
yeah.
That's weird.
Very careful because it's nearly impossible to offend me. I mean, I don't know what, I'm trying to think of what would offend me. There's not much, but not everyone's like that. I always have to, my tongue has calluses on it because I have to bite it so much. It's like in jokes and things that you can't, I'm very selective,
As creative people, where do you think this boutique kind of, this like boutique sensitivity, because we're all sort of suburban, I a little younger than you guys. I grew up in the 80s, but it was still brutal. It was still the era of Ronald Reagan, the Ronald Reagan bully. It was still, it was Lord of the Flies, brother, and
yeah,
it wasn't perfect, but it was kind of cool. It was kind of cool. I don't think there was I don't feel like it was irreparable, like people were irreparably harmed by free-wheeling insults and shit like that. I don't know.
No. I mean, that was, man, Don Rickles could never be Don Rickles if he was around these days, that wouldn't fly, and I don't know, it's kind of weird. It's kind of a fine line because some of the stuff that people are PC about is they're that way because for so long it was this way, way over on this side. So part of me feels like whenever I see people offended by PC culture, a little part of me thinks, well, how do you think they felt? For whatever it is, if it's homophobia or, racism, I think, well, how do you think they felt for so many years? But then the other side of me is just a jerk and I have a really bad sense of humor. So I don't know. I think it's all about knowing your audience, like who you're around and who, and the other thing I think too is it's okay to joke about stuff as long as you're not ignorant or if you're not coming from a place of ignorance. If you know the subject that you're joking about, but then again, it's, you got to be careful because then it turns into, well, why can't I say that word?
Yeah, right. That's right.
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
what do you think, Charlie?
Very fine line.
I think that there's always been groundbreakers, and we're at a point in history, I think, where ground needs to be rebroken in the other direction, and I think that, like Jim was saying a second ago, if you got a take and you can back it up intellectually, go for it.
Yeah.
And you're going to take some heat, but take some heat. You know, if you think that what you're speaking is your truth, you know, do it.
Yeah.
I watched this video with I don't know who the writer was, but he was asked. He was a successful writer who I can't remember his name right now, ironically, but he was asked to give some advice, and he said, you know, looking back on my career, everything I wanted to do was right. Every piece of advice people were giving me was wrong, and because I was young and naive, I would listen to them, but I shouldn't have listened to any of them. I should have just do what I wanted to do, because all the impulses I had were correct, and I just might not have had the chops to carry it out at the time, and I had to learn that, but my instincts were correct. And that's the hardest thing as a comedian now, because you really want to do what you just said, Charlie. You want to cut its throat and paint on the wall with its blood, break new ground in the other direction. As I put it, that's how I put it. But
yeah,
there's so much fear of nobody's going to let me do this, or nobody, you know, I'm going to be a pariah, or I'm going to be cast out. And some of that is just because, I got to be honest with you, some of that is because just corporations are so huge that you're just concerned a corporation is going to not want you to be part of their show or part of their movie or part of their music or whatever. And I really believe that it's going to be there. Someone's going to circumvent that. Someone's going to circumvent that at some point and be able to create and bring stuff to people without a corporation, you know, signing off on it. And at that point, it's going to be fucking like a sexual revolution. It's going to be a crazy.
This is kind of a dated reference, but they used to drag Lenny Bruce to jail on a regular basis, and not just because of drugs or alcohol either. You know, I mean, or abusive behavior. He used to get drugged just for the content of what he was saying. You know, so I mean, anytime there's a groundbreaker, there's a price to pay, and he never had it, you know, much success financially, but he'll always be remembered as an icon. Depends on what you want, I think. Do you want to be an icon? Do you want to be rich? Do you want to get a lot of women? What do you want to do? And what's your objective?
Well, I always said George Carlin was Lenny Bruce's revenge. He was Lenny Bruce's revenge because he was able to have that mainstream life. He lived to an old age. He got more like Lenny Bruce as he got older. Go ahead.
Do you know Dennis Blair, the comedian Dennis Blair?
Yeah, he opens. He was the opener.
I was in a movie with him a long time ago, so we've remained friends. And he wrote a book a lot about with a lot of references to exactly what you're talking about there. And, he's got a book. Yeah, you're exactly right. I agree with you 100%.
I saw George Carlin before I knew who Lenny Bruce was because of just generationally.
Yes.
And then I was going backward. It's in the 90s when I was a teenager. I was not interested in Jerry Seinfeld or the 90s were really a very, what's the word I'm looking for? Antiseptic kind of period of time. You know, with the exception of Tarantino, there were a few things, but George Carlin was getting angrier. In the 90s, he was, you know, we only bomb brown people. And I see that and I go, oh, and I discover Lenny Bruce. And then I saw the Bob Fosse movie, right? Where Dustin Hoffman just does Dustin Hoffman as Lenny Bruce, which is fine. And, but I was going backward. I had no interest in what was happening in my era of creative stuff. I was like, these guys were way better. I mean, Woody Allen and Mort Saul and Richard Pryor and that was like a special time, man.
Well, you know, but I mean, we think it's a special, but like you can go back another, you know, couple generations to like Mark Twain or whatever, and that guy was way out in front of everything and was insulting and offending a lot of people as well as entertaining, you know, so many. So I mean, he was pushing the limits too.
He was using a pseudonym. He was using a pseudonym though. Maybe that's what we all need to do. We just all need to give our work to Shakespeare and he'll publish it.
Yeah.
I didn't
do you know Rich Schneider, the comedian?
Scheidner.
You like Schneider?
Scheidner, I think is his name.
Rich Scheidner, excuse me.
Yeah.
Rich Scheidner.
Yes, he's brilliant, underrated
Rich,
guy.
Yeah, my mistake there. Yeah, Rich Scheidner. He just wrote a book about the history of comedy, and he's actually doing a tour of the history of comedy. And he picks out the first ever stand-up was a guy named Artemus Young, I think. And back in the 1830s and stuff like that. And how he was pushing people at that time. So anyway, Scheidner, I like Rich.
First stand-up was Jesus, actually.
The first hanging comic.
And write your letters to Steve Lolli.
Yeah. These are not the opinions of the No Idea Zone. This is me distancing myself as we're talking about revolution here. I just want, what was it? Louis Anderson said, I'm all for revolution as long as I can still get room service.
Yeah, you should have said, I
That's
saw
so
Jesus
true.
at a club one time. He got crucified.
Oh man, I did see a comic early on and I don't even know if this was his joke, because comics, especially road comics, are all using the same hacky stuff, but he'd said a toast. This is, how did he say it? He goes, to Jesus, he died for my sins. He died for your sins. Don't disappoint him.
If Jesus were around these days, he would probably get canceled,
Well, he already did get canceled, so.
Yeah, okay, he'd get renewed and then canceled. But the things that he said, it's talking about going against the grain,
Oh yeah. Yeah, no real truthful voice ends up, it's just strange because it's not, the right-wing people are now all into these conspiracy groups and stuff, and it's the people coming out of colleges and the academics who are pushing the cancel culture, and it's really not a lot of people.
Yeah,
it's really not a large group of people, but they're very well resourced and they can publish articles.
I feel caught in the middle. I'm caught in the middle between the right-wing conspiracy people and the far left cancel. And like I said, and both sides, I'm sure they have good points to certain areas. Like, oh, I agree with that. But it's like, nowadays, it's almost like a gang mentality. Pick a side. Which side are you on? And being a centrist is like not cool. The centrists sit at that table over there.
Well, there can be no nuance. You can have no nuance. If you're for that, you're a Trumper. If you're against that, you're a Antifa, and that's it. And this is why I'm on the comment boards. I don't sound off unless I have something that I think is really funny to say, and then I still get in trouble.
One of my good friends, the guy, Mark Rudy, the guy you mentioned earlier, Jim, his son is a Berkeley graduate, and I was having a discussion with him the other day about free speech. And, I always felt comfortable saying, well, you should be able to say whatever you want as long as you're willing to take responsibility for it. But he was making the point that there's so much disinformation that's being put into the system, by the Fox Newses and the OANs of the world, Newsmaxes of the world, where they're actually having these think tanks that are fabricating disinformation for political purposes and for economic advantages. And at what point do we start clamping down on that, where it's known falsities being
but that's a reaction to the fact that the institutions we look to information for have failed us. That's a symptom of that. So if those institutions that we look to, that we trust, and those journalists, if they fail us, then where do we go? Well, then we end up in these fucking these tribes like where you end up at the end of the river with Marlon Brando in Apocalypse Now. It's like there's no, how do you decide what information is right and what information is disinformation, right?
It's like, I feel like the media is having a war and we're all caught in the middle. Like this side and this side, we're all caught in the middle. That's why I'm telling everybody, just We need to start us three need to start our own QAnon. But Charlie, I want to use X. I want to use X because
It's got to be Q. If it's not Q, I'm out.
We need some symbols of diversity, Jim, because just the three of us are going to be.
I'm starting Xanon, Charlie. And
Xanon.
You're with
I'm
or
an ex QAnoner.
Yeah, X QAnoner.
This is good stuff, guys. Yeah. Jim, I hope you're going to remember this because if you don't use it, I will.
It's going in. Someone was postulating the other day that the reason that we have such a hardcore right wing is that there's a certain amount of people that just have an exaggerated sense of fear about the world, and that's the fertile ground that a lot of this disinformation is planted in. That's all I got on the topic.
You're supposed to hit the bell.
Jim, Exxon is a oil tanker spill.
Yes, I know. Be careful. Company. You're one letter away from an oil spill.
The Exxon Valdez.
When it spills out disinformation.
That's right. That's right.
There you go. There's my writer's room contribution there.
We should. Jim has a good friend, and he's also my friend now, Lonnie Millsap, who's a cartoonist, and he publishes a lot of stuff with the New Yorker magazine. That sounds like the kind of thing that he might be able to capture in one frame.
Lonnie steals it from Steve, and then I'll steal it back from Lonnie, and then we'll just go.
By that point, it'll actually be good.
Yeah. Somehow. It'll
Jim,
be
how did you feel? Were you a Jules Pfeiffer guy? Were either you guys, Jules, do you know who that is?
I enjoyed it, yeah.
Jules Pfeiffer, that was the character Samuel L. Jackson played in Pulp Fiction, if right.
Oh, was that his name? It was no.
Well, it was Jules. The Pfeiffer, no. But I did.
Pfeiffer was a cartoonist.
He's a kind of Millsap style.
But he was a humorist, and he wrote a movie called Carnal Knowledge.
Oh, I'm familiar with that.
Yes. So he did a lot, like he wrote, he was a hired writer in Hollywood. He would adapt stuff, and he was like a Shel Silverstein. They'd bring him in to do, he was like a Swiss Army knife. He did.
I do know the name, Jules Pfeiffer. I've heard that name quite a bit. I just couldn't pinpoint what he's done.
But he was a subversive cartoonist. So I thought maybe he might.
Now he's not the guy in the New Yorker that always drew his daughter into the comic or whatever. That's a different guy.
That I do think he did draw cartoons for the New Yorker, though. I believe he did.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm pulling shit out of my ass now because I'm fascinated with the origins of your animation.
I was a big Andy Kaufman fan growing up as a child, and that can tell you enough. That can form your brain right there as a little boy, looking at Andy Kaufman and thinking he's the funniest human being. You know, that was my Elvis as a child.
What was the thing you saw? Was it SNL? Was it Taxi? It
was not Taxi, because I remember when he was on Taxi, I thought it was funny, but I was like, well, he's kind of doing his foreign man character. I think I first saw Andy Kaufman on, I want to say SNL, but I might have been too young for that, but reruns of SNL somehow. And I just remember him doing, you know what, I somehow saw clips of him doing stand-up too, because I remember as a little kid seeing him doing that act where he starts crying, like a lady from the audience made him cry, and then he starts playing the bongo and crying at the same. And as a kid, I thought that's the best thing ever. Like, that is the funniest.
There's something so childish.
Yes, and he was just so good and so committed, so good, so committed. You know what? I'll say that this might be unpopular, but I'll say this. And I know he'll never get the credit for it, but I think our modern day Andy Kaufman, in a way, for a while, was Will Ferrell.
He was never as funny, though.
I know, but he was as committed. But the thing is, Will Ferrell.
True, he was as committed, but he never risked what Andy Kaufman.
It's the material too, because Andy Kaufman was original and came up with this brand new stuff, whereas Will Ferrell is an actor doing material. But I think Will Ferrell is, like, for as far as commitment goes and commitment to the bit, he's He's up
What
there.
about Sacha Baron Cohen?
Oh my God, yeah, that guy. Well, that guy
yeah.
is so committed to the bit that people don't know where the bit started, and he's a good one too. Yeah, he's so yeah, that's another one. So I think I tend to like a lot of actors and comedians. I like, or I tend to like them on the more. They're not really punchline comedians. They're just like.
Well, it is surreal comedy. I mean,
Yeah,
Andy Kaufman was surreal comedy.
That's why I'm friends with Charlie, because look at him.
That's it. Look at the man. Just look at.
I will hump your leg if it's funny.
Or for the right price.
You two guys should take what was it? What was the Hunter Thompson? The Hunter Thompson.
Fear and Loathing.
Yeah, you guys should take Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas as a road show and just play the two guys. And you could interchange the parts too. Although I think Jim should play Hunter Thompson.
Fear and Loathing in West Covina. It's
Fear and Loathing.
And it's going to be our stage show
in the Inland Empire.
As your lawyer, I advise you to take these pills.
See that? There's no acting required there, Charlie.
It's a natural fit.
I want to rewrite the ending because I don't like how Hunter Thompson ended, though. So
how did it end? Well, there's two movies.
Killed himself.
In both of them?
Oh, in real life.
Oh. No, I'm thinking of the films.
Okay, good.
In both of them, that is the best line. In both of them?
It didn't end well for him.
He killed himself.
No.
He killed himself in both of them. That's classic. That's good.
Oh man, were you a Fear and Loathing reader? Either of you guys?
Yeah. I was on a ski trip and I remember I picked that up one night and I didn't stop. I skipped skiing the next day because I couldn't put the book down.
I didn't know about it. I didn't know about Fear and Loathing till the film, actually, the Johnny Depp and Del Toro, Benicio Del Toro film.
Okay, so because they made that one with Bill Murray and Peter Boyle in the 80s. They made one.
Mm-hmm.
Which one was it?
It's
what
called.
was it?
It's not called Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. It's called something else. I don't have Joe Rogan's producers to look it up for me right now. But Bill Murray played Hunter Thompson.
Is it the one he made when he was on Saturday Night Live and it was the drama?
It wasn't a drama, and it was after Saturday Night Live. It was the 80s, so he was gone from Saturday Night Live by then.
Wow.
But it's not like Terry Gilliam did the one with Johnny Depp, so it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I mean, it's a cinematic masterpiece. But Bill Murray is much more interesting, obviously.
Oh my God! Yeah.
But it was directed by a guy who came from TV, so it's like head and shoulders. It's not cinematic like a film should be, especially for a guy who was on that many drugs, and it's very standardly. It's directed like an episode of a TV sitcom or something.
Yeah.
Where the Buffalo Roam. That's where it's.
Where the Buffalo Roam. I couldn't think of that for the life of me. Yeah,
that's the name of it.
That was a great film.
I've never seen that. I gotta look that up. Is it as good as White Buffalo with Charles Bronson though?
I've never seen that.
That's a good movie. You got to check that one out. It's about a white buffalo.
Charles Bronson is all over my Amazon queue. I mean, Charles Bronson from the 1970s. He must have made like 70 movies.
My favorite action movie of all time is The Mechanic. I love that film.
I couldn't get through it, Jim. I
love it. But then I saw it as a child the first time. So
Jesus, no wonder you're fucked up. That's a fucked up movie, dude.
I know.
That is a fucking I'm 40 and I'm watching that going, I want to watch a musical comedy right now. This is about heroin addiction and overdose and
murder at the end. I watched it with my dad. I remember we watched it. And my dad had a gun pointed at me the whole time. So it was kind of awkward.
Oh, well.
But no, I did. I watched it as a kid. I remember thinking, yeah, I'd watch some films as a kid. Like my dad was a fireman, LA fireman, and had a great sense of humor. But we would watch stuff, like my dad didn't like cussing, which I thought was bizarre. Even as a kid, I'm like, my dad just did not have cussing in the house. but yet we'd watch these films where Clint Eastwood would like, you know, murder all these people and then like rape a woman. Like,
right.
High
Plains Drifter.
Yeah, and I'll be like, Dad loves these films, but the dad but yet we can't cuss. We can't fucking cuss in the house, Pop.
Right, because he came from that Cary Grant Victorian kind of, you know.
Yeah, my dad was in World War II. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's a war that we had, and he was from World War II, you know, fireman, very, you know what? Now I say it out loud, very dark sense of humor. It's all making sense now. Okay.
All clicking in.
I think it was just normal for you guys in your generation to have stuff like that. It was just, nobody questioned it. It was just part of, you know.
Yeah. And my dad also had his favorite actors and stuff. Dad loved Steve McQueen. Yeah, he was a huge. My dad had his favorites, and I think he would pick other actors he didn't like, and since my dad wasn't into gossip, he would probably just make stuff up about them. Oh, this guy kicked a sick kid, you know, but yet he loves, like, Steve McQueen could do no wrong, and you know.
Well, that's where you got your sense of humor from a little bit from your dad.
You know what? And actually, the like, if you watch my stuff, there's not much cussing in it. There might be a few here and there, but that's probably a symptom from my dad, like the guilt trip. Like, okay, I'm not gonna have my guys cuss. You know, somebody asked me that about.
Yeah, but the toilet will explode all over the guy in the.
Yeah. So.
Scatological. No swearing, but shit flying everywhere.
Yeah. So, I should probably. Is this count as therapy?
Well, that's all it is, unfortunately, guys.
And then when I was 7,
Daddy.
Charlie, have you seen The Mechanic with Charles Bronson?
No, that's the one. That was my favorite.
I'm wondering if Charlie's seen it. Are you familiar with it?
No, I'm not a big fan of any of that stuff, actually. But you know, there was a really weird movie that just came to mind when you were talking about it. Peter Boyle was in it. It's called Joe.
Yes. Oh, that's so fucking weird.
I love that movie. I remember that affected me a lot in a really interesting way as a kid. Wasn't that a great movie?
Okay, you guys are topping now. You just topped him, because that's way weirder than The fucking Mechanic. I mean, at least The Mechanic is like a linear story. That's like an acid trip watching that.
Yeah, it really was. It's like Archie Bunker on acid or something.
Totally.
Yeah.
Now, have you guys heard of a movie called Mr. Freedom?
No.
Have you seen a movie called Mr. Freedom? Because now that we're getting into weird shit here, this is from the late 60s, and it was some film, and there's no star. Oh, Donald Pleasance is in it. But you guys got to go see it. If you haven't seen it, stream it or find it.
Mr. Freedom?
Mr. Freedom, 1969. And it's somewhere between your Mechanic and your Joe. Somewhere in that weird.
I'm in.
Oh, Jim's gonna fucking love it. Jim, just remember that I was the one who told you about that.
Your Freedom. All right, I'll have to check that out for sure.
So here's what I was watching with my dad in the early 80s. My dad was, because we had the VHS shops were popping up. So it was the first time you could go grab a fucking movie and show it to your kid. And I was a little kid. And my dad brought home Being There with Peter Sellers.
Oh.
I was 11 or 12 watching that with my dad.
Wow.
And he's laughing his fucking ass off. And I'm 11 or 12. I don't know what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
But that was a staple in our house.
Yeah.
So I would say that sort of informed my sense of humor. That's a super, super dark comedy.
Yeah. Peter Sellers. There's another childhood hero of mine. Yeah. Peter Sellers.
Yeah. That was his last movie, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Before he died. And everyone died after that
movie. To show a kid Being There.
Yeah. It's a weird, it's not like what you guys are talking about. It's not heavy like that. But it is like, it informed my sense of humor of watching real things, seeing real things that are happening that nobody else knows is funny.
Yeah.
Except for you.
Yeah. It's very subtle.
Yeah, it's very subtle. So, and And then my dad was the one who sat me down to watch George Carlin when I was 15. And he had no idea what we were about to watch. He thought it was going to be like the Hippy Dippy Weatherman. Hippy Dippy Weatherman.
No,
That's not fair. You had cussing in your house. I didn't get that.
Man. And we watched George Carlin Jam in New York, 1992. And then, George Carlin goes, look, this is where George Carlin comes out and he goes, so the rich people do none of the work and pay none of the taxes. The middle class do all of the work and pay all of the taxes. And the poor people, they're basically just there to scare the shit out of the middle class. They'll keep showing up at their fucking job.
That's the best line in history.
Oh, it's so great. And I'm 15 going, what? That's fucking awesome. How did I don't know this guy. And so we watched this all the way through. And at the end, my dad, he points to the TV and he goes, so see, son, that's a communist.
Was that his takeaway from that?
No, I'm looking at, this is my new hero. I don't know what my dad's trying to fucking, but my dad was a Reagan Republican.
Did your dad not like George Carlin, or was he?
No, he really did. He really did. But he had a knee-jerk reaction to anything that he thought was to the left. He was a free speech conservative. So he was all about, he loved George Carlin. He loved obviously all this great comedy, but he thought it was phony. He thought anything that was left of center was phony. And he just got, he got that Reagan thing happen to him. That happened to a lot of middle-aged men then,
Yeah. I grew up in our house. Loved Bill Cosby, loved Bill Cosby. Not his comedy, just his personal life. Okay. No, Bill Cosby was like all over our house.
You should work that into one of your next
Yeah, not the comedy, but like the way he lived his life. That's
the way he conducted himself.
Yeah, the way he conducted, not his, like, just with women, just with, but Bill Cosby, that's another thing too. Do you throw everything out? Because his comedy, I thought his comedy was great. I mean, he was just a funny dude, but yeah.
It's pretty tough, man. It's tough.
It is tough. Yeah.
Bill Cosby as himself is still one of the funniest comedy concerts ever.
Well, not only that, but what he represented too. It's just like, oof, why you? Why couldn't it have been,
Well, Eddie Murphy was telling us that as kids, though. When I was growing up as a teenager, Eddie Murphy was telling us that he was tearing apart Bill Cosby, and Richard Pryor was too. Cosby came out with an X-rated album in the 60s. I don't know if you guys know that.
No,
he was trying to be Lenny Bruce. He came out with an album. It was so unpopular that it was recalled. And you know how I know that? Is the producer of this podcast had that album.
Oh, if I could hear that, I would love to hear that.
Yeah, he told me about it when we met about 7 or 8 years ago. He was the one who told me, Richard, I will give you the credit that you were the one who shared that with me. I never heard it.
Wow.
But it was recalled. It was recalled. So you wonder what demons were lurking in this guy's soul.
I really, really hope that album was called Here, Take This.
No, there was a date rape reference on the album.
He had a Spanish Fly joke. Did you ever hear that? He's got a joke about, like, a long bit about Spanish Fly. And you listen to it now and you're like, whoa, like, this is a little bit too close to home. Yeah. On his regular albums, he's got I got to hear that X-rated Bill Cosby, though.
You'll have to find it, Jim. I mean, with your connections in the subversive art world, you might be able to find
the dark web for that real quick.
Dark web.
Hey, Q might be able to help you.
Yeah.
You get a hold of Q. He's probably got a few copies of that.
Say, Q. Yeah, I need some Mr. X. Thanks. Bye.
Well, guys, tell us. Let's start with you, Charlie. Tell me what you're working on right now, and then where people can find you.
I'm working on my tan. I'm establishing a good summer foundation, and gonna get bronze this year. I just finished a series of commercials for Amazon Prime, playing some different characters in that, and that was fun. And like I say, I'm shooting this thing for Hulu in a couple weeks, and feeling good.
Well, and give us your social media handles so people can find you and follow you.
You know, um, just Charley Rossman on Facebook's really all I'm doing right now. And we did. It's a couple months late for this, but we did a little short film around Christmas called xmasfilm.com and exmasfilm.com.
Oh, sure.
Xmas
Now
film.
you use the X now.
And yeah. So yeah, catch that. It's a couple months late. It's more of a Christmassy kind of thing, but we're real proud of that. We produced that, and it's a 3-minute short, and it's
YouTube?
cute.
YouTube?
It's all over. Yeah, xmasfilm.com.
Okay. And Jim, give us your, because I know you've got some grand stuff going on here.
I got some stuff on Amazon. I guess if you're going to search Jim, just search my name, Jim Lujan, on Amazon, and all that stuff will come up. Always making films. Right now, making a film. It's not dirty as it sounds, but it's called Pleasure Beast. And actually, Charley plays one of the leads in that film. He plays a character.
Please tell me he's the pleasure beast.
He is.
Look at this guy.
Always 24/7. He plays a character named Lee Diablo in it. So there it is. Wait, do we have to pay extra for this?
Oh my
Right.
Do you know you want me? Just give it into your impulses.
This podcast just got flagged. Charley just showed his bare midriff and chesticles.
The sensitive alpha male.
Yeah. So yeah. If you just go to jimlujan.com, you can watch a lot of stuff on YouTube, and I'm on Instagram. I always have stuff on there, and just all over the place. Luckily I have a weird name, so it's not that confusable, I guess.
Confusable.
That's a word.
I'm confuselated.
Like Revengance.
Yes. Confusables. Those are little lunch snacks that you don't know what the hell they are.
Well, everybody, I would highly encourage you to check out Master Funk Theater, Revengance, Master Freak Theater, all of Jim's great work on, and you're going to send me the first one.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'll
as well.
Infinity.
And check Charley out and whatever he's doing. And I hope to be working with you guys in something soon. I got a little thing coming up that I can't quite talk about, but there's some good things happening too. If you want to see me, you can go on Sunday. I'll be in Eagle Rock, which isn't too far from where you guys are from.
Yeah, I know Eagle Rock.
In the outdoor amphitheater there with Eddie Pepitone, live.
Wow.
The first live paying gig in, gosh, since George Zimmerman got acquitted. So thank you guys for coming on and joining me, and everybody out there in the No Idea Zone, follow these guys, and we will see you next week. Thank you guys.
Thanks, Steve. Good to see you. Good to see you, my friend.
Hey everybody, I hope you enjoyed whatever you saw on our channel today. Make sure to like, comment, and share everything you see here, and please hit that big red subscribe button. You have no idea how much it helps the No Idea Zone every time you hit that button. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next installment of the No Idea Zone.